It's football Sunday in America. um, you may hear yelling in the background as the Bills do their thing today. Um, and we have a small tight crowd. I see at least one new face, and so Michael, be prepared to be interrogated. I got I got a little announcement to share with y'all, and I was kind of hoping that Gustavo would be here, but um, if he shows up, we'll recap it again. Um, the Load ZX Spectrum Museum, is that the right name? I think so. Is having an online event next Sunday, the 27th, and it's going to be at 2100. I don't know what that is. 9 o'clock, something their time, 4 o'clock Eastern time. And they have been working on preserving all sorts of cool stuff, from the Timex Sinclair world, as it were. And they're going to be talking. They've been doing this premiere and talking about this particular technology, this set of hardware that was developed at the Timex plant in Portugal with some folks who worked on the spectrum side of the world. And this product, got as far as we made some brochures that look really awesome. We made some hardware that looks really cool. Burnt some ROMs, burnt some PALs, and we're getting ready to sell it to at least one country, and then things fell apart. So it'll be one of those exciting hero stories where it builds up and then it falls apart, except that maybe the hero doesn't come back. That's next Sunday, October 27th at 4 p.m. Eastern. I'll send out a little message on the listserv. And speaking of listservs, archive.org is half up. The Wayback Machine portion is half up. So you can go look at old websites. What you cannot get to are all the scanned books, all the scanned magazines, all the digitized software. All of that's offline still. So I just dumped my hard disk of that kind of stuff to a Google Drive, and I sent out a message to our groups.io about that. So, if you want to look at magazines, if you want to download everything, I think everything, almost everything that I've ever scanned or digitized, and some of the stuff that Joe has digitized, and every other stuff that other people have scanned or digitized, uh, now's your moment to get it like all in one folder. You can download the whole folder at once. It's I think the magazines are something on the order of 86 gigs of PDFs and raw images and stuff like that. Um, the 1068 software is less than that. I feel like it might have been 10 gigs, but that's inflated by the fact that they contain WAV files usually. I don't remember how big the books folder was. All I know is that once I uploaded it, Google then said to me, "You're running out of room, so you need to up your subscription." I was like, "Okay, I can go all the way to $3.24 a month." um, so yeah. Um, and then the other thing that I wanted to mention was last year we tried to gather some holiday programs, and I found one, and Ryan found one, and we have at least one more of Ryan's, which uh, is from the Timex Sinclair 1000 uh, era of Ryan's programming. And it features an inchworm instead of reindeer. It's very cute. So if y'all have some kind of program that you wrote for celebrating a holiday, right? We got Thanksgiving coming up, and I remember Family Computing used to do Thanksgiving programs with graphics. We got Christmas, of course. If you have something sitting around, mention it on the list, and we'll put it all together and play this play these things during our meetings. Sorry, I'm chuckling because there's all kinds of shouting going on downstairs. I think maybe the Bills are doing okay for 5 minutes. So with that, Michael, you're new here.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Good, good.
So Michael, the first thing that we ask people is, what's your origin story?
Um, with Timex Sinclair, it would have been with the Timex Sinclair 1000 when I was a child.
Excellent, excellent.
I can't say I ever, until just recently, owned a 2068. I bought it just a couple of years ago
Okay.
and actually bought it after working with the ZX Spectrum for a while
Hmm.
and wanted to see what the American version was like.
Very cool.
Um, Started working with the ZX Spectrum off of actually a Soviet version that I just randomly bought off of eBay. Liked it, the Leningrad.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And so I'm assuming that it had a Cyrillic alphabet.
No, believe it or not, it's got an American. They never actually had their own. All they did is literally copy the ZX Spectrum. So everything was still, they copied the ROM the whole 9 yards.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So it is essentially a ZX Spectrum, just in a handmade box, which is why I bought it because it looked so really cool.
Oh,
Um,
that's fantastic.
but yeah, I got it. Got into that, and then started working on the FujiNet, which is where I actually started working with the ZX Spectrum before I realized exactly what a mess that was. Uh-huh. They've cut so many corners on that machine. It has just been a nightmare trying to design something.
Well, the corner cutting, I think, started with what the amplifiers back in the 60s. uh and certainly showed up in the ZX80 and the 81 and R1000 and etc. Yeah, yeah. So you mentioned using an FPGA in order to just give the thing a serial interface, right?
Yeah, yeah, because we've tried multiple formats. We actually did design a direct logic just with shift registers parallel to serial SPI bus interface. The problem is we could never get the SPI bus working fast enough to be able to actually get the data in. So we had to come up with a different method. So yeah, looking at using an FPGA to actually capture and store, kind of buffer the address lines, data lines, and filter it, if you will, so that way we're only pulling in address lines that or IOs that we want.
Okay.
Um, and then yeah, send it off to the ESP32 via SPI bus.
So I know what a FujiNet is, but for the sake of the folks who are going to then
Yeah.
watch this, later, and maybe the folks who don't here know what a FujiNet is, can you
Yep.
recap that for
Fuji,
us?
it's a wonderful project. Started quite a few years ago. I should say quite a few, probably 5, 6 years ago, mainly with the Atari. And it has grown into multiple different platforms. And it's a generic interface where hopefully what the eventual goal is to get all the different platforms so they can chat with each other over, and it includes Wi-Fi, it includes PDF printing, it includes a few different interfaces that right now is purely serial, but we're hoping that if we can actually get a parallel bus version of it going, one, we can speed things up quite a bit. and we can open up the amount of platforms capable of being accessed.
And you said this does do all instances of the FujiNet device, are they all ESP32 based?
Yeah. And
Okay.
that's why we ended up going with that, because my hope was not to rewrite the design. There's been so much work that went into designing the FujiNet on ESP32 that if I could just get it to a serial interface, my hope is the fact that it can then be implemented into the existing code and not have to reinvent the wheel when it comes to the actual FujiNet.
Okay, so I got a bunch of technical questions for you, just sort of off the top of my head here. Um,
And I will do my best. I am more of a hacker than I am an engineer, but
okay,
I,
that's cool. That's you described, all of us here.
yeah.
Um, with the how does the ESP 32 accept commands? I mean, I'm assuming there's some sort of protocol and structure, right?
Yeah, depending on which system. I mean, a lot of the existing systems, it comes through the serial port from the actual device, whether it's the Atari, Apple, or the likes of that. It does also have a Wi-Fi interface,
Hmm.
so you can actually bring it in via Wi-Fi. Um, and then, of course, at least like mine, I've got three different buttons on it. So you have a minor physical interface on the device itself. But yeah, the majority of it, and it's Thomas. I can't think of his last name,
Cherry
but he's the
Holmes?
gen. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's done an amazing job at interfacing. I mean, I've got the version for the ColecoVision Atom, and it
Okay.
looks original. You would be hard pressed to tell that you weren't working on an original Atom application. But the interface is actually, whether or not you're trying to set a Wi-Fi address or anything, it interfaces directly into the ESP32 over the serial bus from the Atom.
Okay. And so since you've got an atom, both atom and a spectrum, um how how do you send a command to the Fuji? I mean, because you know my impression that there's at least 5 or 6 different platforms it supports right now.
Yeah, and the I mean the Spectrum, and I'm not sure. I really got to do a lot more research on the 2068, but the Spectrum's going to be challenging because there is no actual I/O routine in the Spectrum.
Right.
So part of that's going to have to be actually writing a BIOS custom for the Spectrum to be able to do the interface.
Right.
And,
Yeah. Yeah.
and on here, I actually have a RAM. There's a RAM chip on there, which actually will work as a customizable ROM. So you'll have to actually dump the ROM into there,
Hmm.
and that will actually be the. I mean, and I'm hoping that once I get a hardware working, I can get some of the Spectrum crew to start actually helping me work with the actual BIOS. Because yeah,
Okay.
almost every Spectrum system has had its own custom BIOS, including the interface one and on. And
Okay.
that's the reason why is because none of them actually had any IO.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's what I was kind of getting at, is that the Sinclair machines are all cassette based, and anything that supported a non-cassette interface required an additional, in addition to the ROM, basically. And the interface one, has its own hooks for switching itself in and out. um, and for the TS Pico, Gustavo did exactly what you said, which is hijack those commands in the extra space in one of the ROMs in the 2068. But there's not a lot of extra space in the Spectrum ROM, which you've probably noticed.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, very interesting. So you have to talk to the FujiNet, in its language, as it were. You have to, on the host system, somehow do that translation. So I don't know that much about the Atom. How was that accomplished on the Atom?
The Atom actually had a serial interface and a decent IO routine.
Oh,
So
okay.
they just utilize the existing IO setup.
Okay.
And I mean, Thomas could explain that a lot better than me. I actually more just a user on that one than I was actually into the developing. But yeah, I do know that they had a good IO routine and all that they used that was already existing. And
Okay. Uh, Paul wanted to
I,
know, does it support the TI 994A? Is there a version for that?
I think they're working on one, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
They're working on a boatload of them. There's actually a uh, forum for all the different FujiNets and the different systems, and different groups are working on different systems on there. It's on Discord. Okay, knew I could
Okay.
remember it. And yeah, I know that Apple's done or near done. Atari, I believe Commodore, ColecoVision Atom, and I do know that they were working on it, but I'm not. They're working on a bunch of them, so I don't know exactly what the status of a lot of them.
Okay.
I've mainly just been working on the Spectrum one and stay in my little area.
Hey, Jeff, you had a question, Jeff?
Oh, yeah, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
Um, uh, what does what does IO system mean in the case of say the Coleco Atom?
Well, you got the IO routines. It's a Z80 base system, just like the all the rest of them.
Right.
But so you got the IO request and then the address, but they actually have existing addresses that you can utilize. Where with the Spectrum, other than the IO1, which is the printer, I don't know that there really is any others, which is going to make it more of a challenge.
Well, the with the Spectrum, you do have access to the Z80 bus, and
Yeah.
so you could fairly easily um, access FujiNet using input and output instructions if that is acceptable. Because essentially you'd have to load a driver into RAM. What you don't get are niceties like print to someplace and have it do something.
Yeah, and that's one of the things because of the fact that the Atom actually had floppy drives, hard drives, and the likes of that already available. So they had a lot of the routines already written, and they just hijacked the existing routines.
Mm,
Okay.
mhm. Okay.
Um, yeah, and basically what I do is, I mean, I watch for the IORQ line to drop along with the read or write line, depending on which one it is, and then I hijack it at that point in time. And if it's one of the ones that I'm looking for, I just grab the data bus, or will. I'm still working on the code. This is going to be fun. I've never programmed FPGAs before, so I'm learning as I go. It's an interesting world. I think probably my most challenging part is it looks so much like C, but functions absolutely nothing like it.
Well, I mean, Verilog does look a lot like C, and once you get past the whole sequential versus concurrent statement thing, I program in VHDL, but Verilog is okay-ish.
Yeah, it's a lot more. I looked at VHDL and the Verilog is a lot more. I mean, easier for me to learn for having done none of it before. And I'm still, yeah, it was probably the first programming language in years I've had to go back to Hello World and start from the beginning because it was just unusual enough for what I was accustomed to the
Right.
point where I couldn't just jump into it and try. I was happy I got a adapted a spy bus routine, so that I do have that up and running. And now I'm working on capturing the address lines and actually just sending the address lines across the spy bus over to the ESP32 so that I can confirm I've got good capture and good data. And one step at a time.
Interesting. Wow. How long have you been doing this?
We've been working on this for a little over 3 years.
Okay.
but this is our fifth version of it.
Hmm.
We had a lot of failures.
So you are an engineer. I speak from experience.
Wow. Wow, that's cool. Um, so what do you think? It sounds like you're currently at sort of the basic IO level of trying to get that sorted out. Um, what do you think in terms of a timeline for getting a spectrum on the FujiNet, as it were?
Hardware wise, I'm hoping, I mean, because I've got it built. It's on my bench. It is working. I still have some of the logic to work out, but I am actually getting the IOs and everything to the FPGA. So at this point, it's working on the code, and I'm hoping by the beginning of the year, I'll have that working hardware done that I can hand off to some of the coders and actually see what they can do with it. Because yeah, I mean, that's only going to be the hardware's only half the equation, not even half, probably a quarter, because they're going to have to actually adapt the FujiNet code, and as I said, somebody's going to have to write a ROM
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
actually incorporate the actual I mean the spectrum part of the equation.
Yeah.
And
Interesting.
I'm hoping for help once I get to that point. Once I can actually put a piece of hardware in people's hands to play with.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Really cool. Really cool. It's it's a long development process, doing anything like this, especially as complicated as what you're working with. So
But
yeah.
a lot, I mean, I've had so much fun. I've learned probably more doing this than I have anything else. It was great. I mean, and it was interesting because our last design, see, when we began it, we wanted to build something that anyone with a soldering iron could build. We didn't want to put it behind a paywall.
Mhm.
If you look at a lot of the Fuji nets, they're all SMD components. And so either you go and buy, I mean, a lot of people can actually solder the SMDs, but it's a challenge. So we wanted to stick with through hole components, no special programmers, nothing like that. And the last variant if we would have kept working on it, I think we could have gotten it to work, was pure logic gates from front to back. But it was just growing so big and so complex that it was actually almost larger than the spectrum itself. And we knew we had to go a different route with it. But it was neat because it kind of taught me how the people who designed the spectrum and the Leningrad and the likes of that, what they went through when they designed them originally. And I really enjoyed, working with the different gates and building the cache to be able to hold on to the stuff and auto routing the addresses and the likes of that. And it has also helped with the FPGA because I basically built all the logic circuits once.
Right.
Now I
Right.
just have
Yeah.
to do it in code.
Just.
Yeah.
Fatal
One little
fun.
bit at a time.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Are you using an FPGA development board, or are you guys lashing up something of your own?
No, I'm using the Tang Nano 20K development board, and that's how
That's
I'm keeping it through hole. And I like it because it's already got have a SD card integrated. It's already got USB, so I don't have to worry about that. I mean, if we really wanted to get elaborate, it's even got an HDMI port on it. But baby steps. I just want to get the I/O decoding started.
it's funny you should mention that, Michael, because I just was reading about that. I don't know, stumbled across it last week, and I was just reading about it and doing a little diving into it. And I was like, wow, this is really cool, pretty powerful, dirt cheap.
Yeah, and that's what I liked about it. You don't have to spend a boat. I mean, I think $30. It's not as cheap as say ESP32, but
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to an FPGA, it's realistic.
Yeah.
Gee. They're $3.30 on AliExpress.
And so Jeff, that was my next step was, after having read about this, I was going to mention them to you because what you need is another rabbit hole.
Oh, thank you so very much, David.
I mean, I didn't have enough smarts
Wow.
looking at it to, assess what it could do and stuff. So
It does look interesting. I'd have to find out what the device is doing, but that not another one.
there you go.
This is going to be like the Pico.
Yeah. Well, there you go, Jeff.
Uh,
You can blame
there's
Mike.
history. There's history there, Michael.
Blame him. If he hadn't mentioned it, I wouldn't have, spoken up.
Yeah, yeah. I believe you. Millions wouldn't, but I do.
Wow. Well, that's really cool, Michael. That's really cool. I remember you
Wow.
wrote me about this feels like about a year ago or so. It sounds like you guys have made a lot of progress.
Yeah, it's coming along.
That's
Hopefully.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As I said, I was happy to actually see the data actually get all the way from the from the Speccy to the Nano. I got that done today.
Wow.
So that means now I've got an actual good interface so that I can start working on the code.
So the Nano's 5-volt tolerant.
3.3. I've got level shifters in
You
line.
got level shifters. Okay.
Yeah, basically I come out of the Speccy, run it into 245s for gating and buffering, run it out of there into level shifters, and then run it down to the Tang Nano. And then I've actually got a memory. Can't remember what size it was, but I've got a memory chip that's in line at the 5-volt level. And I want to utilize that as the basically a customizable BIOS. Knowing that I had to get a BIOS in line somehow, I figured I might as well put one where you could just upload code directly into it. And
yeah.
hot swap it as you need.
You said you have 245s as buffers, and then something else. Is it what's the
gates? The gates, that way I can shut the drop the OI or output enable line on the 245s. So like if I need to program the memory card or anything without interfering with the Speccy or anything, I can do it and just isolate the card from everything else.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a design question. There is a 245 that also does level shifting.
Is there really?
Oh, yes. Jeff, do you remember the part number off the top of your head?
Is it the HC?
Give me a couple seconds here, David.
Okay. I think it's like LV. I have some 10 feet behind me.
It's
like LVHC.
Yeah, it's an SN24 LVC 245. Now I'm using surface mount parts, but you can get them in through hole.
Yeah, I got them. I have a whole drawer full of them in through hole.
The nice part about them is that they are single supply.
Yep.
Standard 20-pin package. They are 5-volt tolerant on all of the inputs, and they operate off at 3.3 volts.
Do you know what the switching? I can look it up.
Oh,
the switching speed on.
Oh, they're plenty fast. They're plenty fast enough for what we're doing. They're like, I think 8-9 nanoseconds.
Okay, because that's why we'd originally tried the HCs, but the HCs, if you run them at if you run them at the 3.3 volt level, the delay is so high that you oftentimes have issues with them.
Yeah, you end up with race conditions or whatever.
Yeah.
No, the L portion, I believe it stands for level shifting in the part number.
So I'm running the straight 5-volt 74 LS, the old TTL ones.
74 LVC 245. There you go. I put it in the chat for you.
Okay.
Yeah, these things are wonderful because Jeff and I don't think Ricardo is here today, but Jeff and Ricardo have both used those on their projects that interface to the Raspberry Pi Pico. And Jeff's project uses the Pico to turn the 2068 video into VGA, and Ricardo's project is the TS Pico, which is kind of similar to the FujiNet in that it lets you save and load to an SD card, and also has RAM and a flash chip on it for well, there's a ROM in the first slot of the flash chip that Gustavo, who's here, rewrote to make it hijack it, kind of like what you're talking about, to talk through an IO port instead of to tape, and it does a lot of similar things, except it's not, it doesn't do all the things that the FujiNet does. Hey, Gustavo.
Hi, hello, David. Hello, group. Hello, Michael. Nice
Hello.
to see you.
Nice
how are
to see you. Good.
Thank you. Good. No, well, we start with this project that David mentioned to launch the 40th anniversary of the TS 2068.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that was the initial origin for this for the job, and you great a good appointment, a good solution for the Spectrum and for Timex with the FujiNet, because it's a great standard of that. I remember many years ago, the protocol of the FujiNet is using in different target machine. That is one of the important part of your shop. And now I think you are mentioned that is ported to the 2068 at this time, right?
Looking at it, yeah, hoping.
Yeah. Okay, but we have inside the TS Pico a modified operating system ROM, and one of these particular behavior is you could be adapted to many different targets. And I don't know if they be thinking that we can assist in the hardware level and low level programming to create a special version for the TS Pico and ROM and the FujiNet. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I didn't want to volunteer you, Gustavo. I figured you could volunteer yourself.
Okay.
But
No,
let me tell you this, Michael. Gustavo is one of the smartest people I know when it comes to Z80, machine language programming. And when you combine that with the intersection of what he knows about programming machine language on the 2068, I can't think of anybody else, who knows more than Gustavo does.
No, okay. The idea is if you need the assistance for the software part, we have ready and working an interface with the Timex Basic or Spectrum Basic with the specific command. We use the TPI specific command now. TPI is a prefix in the command, okay? David is used every time, and also the user group of the TS Pico use the TPI, the famous TPI command. And in case you need or you have a different interface or different, in this case is microprocessor to process the input-output, we can add to the specific syntax another prefix for you, for example, to use with your core. Okay,
Very
but
cool.
In this case, is compatible for the programmer or for the user, because the user, if need to access at the TS Pico, okay, use the TPI, and if in case you need to use hardware specific, use a different prefix. But one of the key point of this is we can support both hardware plugged into the machine. Okay, FujiNet plus TS Pico.
Yeah, what
Very cool.
do you know what
Yeah.
IO ports you're using for the
Yes, I use the port 14 and
oh
15.
no, I was asking Michael
Ah, okay.
what IO
I
ports?
haven't even gotten into that yet.
Okay. Okay.
Yes,
And
but
it is, I mean, basically the way I'm figuring on designing it, we can pick any IO ports we want.
Mhm.
For the spectrum, as long as it's not, I believe, even.
Yeah,
yes.
All even IO ports on the spectrum are out of, you can't use them.
Yep, something like that.
No, we can select two even ports. It's not used now for another peripheral, okay? Because, for example, our system is working in parallel with the FDD system for Timex or Spectrum. You can use the system disk or the TS Pico both in the same system. And we need to choose a port, an input-output port to communicate with your hardware. No problem.
Okay.
Or,
Yeah, there was something, and it was years ago when I researched it, but they said something about the fact that on the ZX Spectrum, at least on the 48, they were utilizing IO 0 or bit 0 in the IO code for the printer. And any IO that activated bit 0 activated the printer because all they ever did was just check for that one bit.
yes.
When they...
No, and also the ULA for Spectrum is selected with the address 0 in 0. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I vaguely recall seeing what you mentioned, Michael, which is that it's either odd or even that's only available on the
it was weird. And
Spectrum.
I said I just started looking at it and just kind of scratched my head when I...
Well, again, with the cutting corners. I mean the ZX printer uses 1 bit, for its decoding, address decoding, or IO port decoding rather. And the Timex printer uses 2 bits. I don't remember what the other one was off the top of my head, but equally limiting to say the least. Yeah. Cool. Very cool. Well, I'm not going to volunteer Gustavo, but
Yes.
I'm going to volunteer Gustavo.
Yes, please copy to Michael. Yeah, no, please copy Michael, and also if you like to.
Well,
join, yeah.
Michael, you're on the groups.io list, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so you guys can email each other and stuff like that. Cool.
Yeah, and as I said, I'm when I get the hardware ready, I'm many volunteers as I can get because I'm a hardware person. I'm hoping I can get help with the software.
No, but it's necessary maybe create a session that we have for the TS Pico hardware. We create a session to integrate the protocol to your hardware. It's easy to do. It's not difficult.
It's easy for you.
No. Remember, one of the works done is Ricardo, as David mentioned, is not in my city. We not see the face 3 or 4 times in a year. Only all the work was virtual using Zoom or some. Really, it was incredible because I have documented all the protocol, the low-level protocol, and then exchange with Ricardo because the work of Ricardo was create the Python part of the Pico, and really was integrated 100% without problems.
I should mention, Michael, both Gustavo and Ricardo are in Argentina. We sometimes have Tim join us from New Zealand, where it is the future. And I just talked to someone on Facebook who managed to get a 2068 recently, who's in Chile. And so I encouraged him to join the list and to join our meetings. So the reach of the Timex is astounding to me.
I say, especially the 2068. As I said, as a child, I had a Timex Sinclair 1000, which I loved. That was my first computer.
Yeah.
Moved into the Atari and then the IBM after that. But yeah, the Timex Sinclair was my first. Remember, starting cassettes, going to lunch, making some lunch, and then coming back and hoping that it didn't fail halfway through. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The good old days when we had patience or something like that.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic.
And sorry, Mikey, maybe you explained that, but I'm showing a few minutes later to the call. The FujiNet solution for Timex, your idea is develop a board to plug in on the backside. What is your plan?
Yes, it is a board. Basically, the board has a generic 40-pin connector on it. And my hope is to be able to build interface cards. If you actually look at I posted the schematics up, and I currently have 4 different cards. I have one for the Spectrum, one for the 2068, one for the MSX, and one for the TS80.
Okay.
And the hope is basically looking at Z80 based systems, at least to begin with. So that way, yeah, kind of keep it easy.
Would it be, Michael, would it be acceptable to you if we were to take that design and move it over to a form factor that's compatible with the backplane we're using for our expansion cards?
Oh yeah,
with proper attribution, of course.
Yeah, I will warn
blame.
you, don't grab the one that's there right now, because I've found at least 3 logic issues right this morning. So
well, I'm thinking your FPGA version would be the one that we would take. So
yeah, I'm just trying to get it's couple of issues this morning was on the direction lines on the 245s. Got to fix that. Tried to take it easy and just pull it off the read line from the Z80 and found out that will not work because it wants to switch over to the opposite direction when there's nothing on the bus to feed to the Z80. So I'm going to have to put some more logic on that. Yeah, kept crashing the Z80 this morning. Took me a while to figure out why. And then, yeah, I got to work on the logic for the output enable line for the memory card. I kind of forgot to actually put in memory request on it. So right now you do a IO request and try reading from the memory, which won't work.
How much memory do you have on that board?
I can't remember what it is. It's a fairly large memory chip. I think I can do like 8 or 9 different switchable banks. I mean, figuring you're only going to go 32K per bank.
Oh, okay. So you're using probably a 512K static.
Yeah, I think it was 512. Yeah, it's not
okay.
Not too large, but
well, the reason
more than large enough for what I need.
Yeah, the reason I asked is that there's enough. They're looking at the data sheet for that FPGA. There's just shy of 128K bytes of block RAM in the FPGA that's available.
Yeah, and I'm hoping to basically use that as first of all, a cache, because I still can't get this. No matter what I do, I can't get the SPI bus to move fast enough.
Oh yeah,
there's such an overhead on that SPI bus; it's just impossible. So running it as a cache and then running it as kind of a buffer in between, like if you want from the SD card over to the memory or SD card to direct memory access or anything like that. Looking at making probably 8-10 banks on the FPGA alone and just using them as kind of temporary storage for buffering and transport and the likes of that.
Makes a lot of sense.
But yeah, I thought the simplest way, if you're going to do like a replaceable ROM, is to have the memory in place. And then I believe they've got the same thing on the 2068. On the Z80, you've just got the ROM CS line, I think it is. And you drop the ROM CS line, and all of a sudden the Speccy looks over for its ROM rather than its onboard one. So I figured the easiest thing to do is put the memory module in line with it and then just transfer the process over to the memory module and use that as the ROM replacement. And the
So
nice part is since there's so many possibilities, you can actually bank between them.
Mhm.
If all of a sudden you wanted to go over to a different one, if you had a game in ROM or something like that, or if you're the MSX that uses like 3 ROM banks to begin with, which is still don't even know how we're going to do that, but
on the Spectrum, it's ROM chip select, but on the 2068, you probably want to use the bank enable line to substitute your own ROM.
yeah, I saw that there was like 2 of them, and I was actually going to ask you guys which one.
Yeah, on the 2068, that's the easiest way to do it is when well, I mean, if you're substituting your own ROM for the entirety of the 2068 ROMs, if the address, the read address is under 16K, then use the bank enable and switch your own ROM in.
Because I figured one of them was for the front port, the other one's for the back, or does it matter? I noticed both of them. I noticed there were 2 lines I was looking at. Both of them are available on the back, but I was trying to figure out which one's which. I think I just put them to pins on my thing so I could switch between the 2 and play with them. But
Jeff,
trying to remember what the other one was.
The basically bank enable switches out all memory on the 2068. So you have to have some external logic to ensure that whatever RAM you want is still paged in. If you want, I can make myself available to you, Michael, to deal with. Oh, shut up.
I didn't want to volunteer you either, Jeff.
I can make myself available to provide you, some insight into the way that I wrote my code as well. So
very cool. Thank you.
Cool. Hey, Johnny Red.
Hello.
Hi. Can you talk in a slightly cagey way about the upcoming event next Sunday?
Not sure what I can tell.
Well, it's a big reveal, right?
It's a big reveal.
It's a
going to be
thing that
the museum
go ahead.
anniversary. It's going to be the museum anniversary. We're going to make a big reveal about the project, and you all have to wait till then.
Is this a project that many of us might have heard about in the past 2 or 3
Maybe
years?
slightly.
Okay. Did it ever come to fruition? Did it ever become a real besides prototypes, did it ever become a real product?
I think it never got off the market.
Okay.
There was a project named Minerva in Portugal, but they declined it. They didn't like the way it worked.
Okay.
And we don't know anymore if it was adopted. There are some schools that looks like they adopted it, but hard to find.
Hard to find out. Okay. So if you're a person who's interested in Timex hardware developments that occurred after 1984, in Portugal in particular,
86.
86. Oh, okay. I didn't realize it was that
86.
late. That's crazy. Okay. So if that's, you have any kind of interest in the hardware projects that were developed in at Timex Portugal in that era, this would be an interesting meeting to attend.
I think so.
I I got an email from Joao, and the first part was being sworn to secrecy and not revealing too much detail here.
Yeah.
So, Gustavo, let me put it this way. You in particular would be very interested in attending this meeting, which is October 27th at 4 p.m. Eastern time, according to Google's translation.
It's a week.
October 27, at
Next
what
Sunday.
time?
Next Sunday.
Yes.
It's
the time?
9 p.m. your time, Johnny?
Oh.
2100
9
is 9
p.m.
9. Yeah.
9 p.m. Portugal time.
Portugal time.
Yes.
Okay.
And Gustavo, you are an hour ahead of me.
No, yes, of course. Yes.
So
Here
okay,
is
so
approx
it'll be
4 or 5 p.m.
4 or 5 p.m. Yeah. 4 or 5 p.m. It's 4 p.m. my time, so 5 p.m. your time, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, Johnny helped me send many times software for the FDD, and appreciate because my FDD start alive again. Thanks to you. Because yes, my soul copies was destroyed by the mogs or the pass of time. Okay.
Oh,
Thank you, Johnny, for your help.
no
I don't know,
problem.
2 years ago maybe. I don't remember when, but yeah. Of course, thank you.
Yeah.
No problem.
The other thing I wanted
Okay.
to
See
chat
you
with.
next.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, sorry. And see you next week with this present. Okay.
Yeah.
I know that Minerva think for the
for-
Portugal guides. Yeah, I remember in old days what is the plan of the Minerva. It's a government plan.
yeah, it was.
Exactly.
And Johnny, is there what's it going to be on? Is it going to be on like the YouTube channel for the museum?
I think it's going to be on YouTube.
Okay.
Not sure about Twitch. Not
Okay.
like a gaming event or nothing like that. YouTube is probably the place.
Okay. I'll double check with Joao and get a link from him and send it out to the group.
There already the poster on Facebook.
Yeah, I'll go look and see if there's a link on that for
Probably it's not created yet.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, please share with us because in my case I don't have Facebook.
Right. Gustavo's one of the purists. He's not been sullied with social media.
Yeah.
Gustavo, there are many reasons I respect and like you. Not being on Facebook is prime.
Exactly. Yes.
Y'all are missing the excitement. Or not. The other thing that, go ahead, Johnny.
It's not only on Facebook, it's also in Instagram. I'm not sure what more social networks. There are a lot of now. I don't even have an account on all of them. But the first part, it's going to be in Portuguese, so you may struggle a bit. The second part will be in English, the part you want to see.
There was, yeah, and Joao said that would start at 22, which would be 5 p.m. Eastern. But he also said that there was going to be some video that'll be shown with English subtitles during the first part. So even if we don't understand Portuguese, I believe there was some portion of that we can at least read the subtitles.
Oh yeah. At least that.
Yes. Yeah.
For me, it will be the second part, the most interesting one.
Yeah. Cool. Very cool. The only other thing that I had that I wanted to chat amongst ourselves was the ZX Zine, because it is past mid-October, and just thinking about production time for Tim and I know I owe Tim a few things, but just think about Tim's production time. Even if we got him everything that he could possibly want today, Tim, I'm guessing you'd be a little hard pressed to have something completely wrapped up and debugged and etc. before the end of the year.
So layout takes typically a day or two to do
Okay.
the layout. Once they have the articles, then I think it'd be a matter of just going through and
Proofing it.
grammar checking it, proofing it, that sort of thing. That would be farmed out to a couple people, just second pair of eyes. Maybe I did something wrong. Um, I think the hardest part is going to be the physical part of it. The electronic is fairly easy, a couple days of doing layout. Um, it would then be the next step of how we want to do the hard copy version. Do we want to print it ourselves? Do we want to do print on demand, everyone order it? Or what?
Right. That's
So
exactly what I was thinking, was that, physical production part
I mean,
might
I
take
could
a
always get
while.
it done locally. I know a couple local print shops. We have the funds left over from the Bill Murray collection for printing it, and then we have to figure out how to do the mailing. That may take some time and getting all the mailing stuff going, who gets it mailed to, and defining, do we do is print copies and then charge people for postage, or how we define who gets it, if we charge full rate, not full rate, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
we don't really have official membership list.
Do not. Right. So part of this is, if you have been thinking about writing something for this, physical edition of the ZX zine, now's a great time to start, tapping on your keyboard. Um I can think of a couple folks that I'd be interested in seeing some written version of their experiences. Like Larry, your experience in building the Wesp and getting it working with your 81, I think that'd be cool, just to have that written out and have maybe a couple pictures that would accompany that. um Paul, some history, uh um as a vendor, or as it relates to the user group that you were part of, or the bulletin board program that you and Willie worked on. All of those would be really fascinating things to have. Jeff, I'm going to pick on you. Your development process for the Pico video. That might be an interesting story for folks. I'm partly, it's the interesting story, partly it's the preservation of history. Keith, I know you have good stories to tell. Um, Ryan, I know you have interesting things to say. Um, so, and you're not writing for, for Time or Newsweek, you're writing for us. You're just telling stories to us. So, don't think it has to be, there's all kinds of pressure, but just think about, how would you tell a newcomer about, some thing that you did, or some part of, the history that's it's worth preserving. And Jeff, you're
So I will
retired.
say, so far I've got 8 articles. We got 8 articles so far. 2 are from David. I won't go into them because I kind of want them to be, a surprise when you get the issue. Um, but yeah, if someone's working on something, like my ideas for me when I write something is, this is a project I'm working on. I find it interesting. Let me just share what I'm doing. So if you have something you're working on and you find interesting, sure. It's going to be a complete project. And I find interesting is, I might like to read that, and then it generates ideas for me. Oh, that's interesting. Maybe I may not do exactly what you're doing, but I can do something that it spurs a memory or a thing like, oh, let me try something different, or that thing. Oh, that maybe I'll do that a little differently. And it's just fun to kind of read what people do and then maybe inspire something in me to go do something fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And Tim has asked me to write about the TS Pico thing, and so I'm working with Ricardo and Gustavo. I'll be reaching out to you to try to write this piece that talks about Genesis to Pico in hand, as it were.
I think there should be two prongs to that. One is just going to be the history of it, and also the technical details. I think the TS Pico will be the highlight of this issue, because it's really the first hardware we've had for the 26-8, and I don't know how long.
Decades.
So, and I think people in Europe will find it interesting, although they have the ZX Span and maybe something similar for the Spectrum, but they might be interested. And there might even be a few over there who want to buy it because there are some few 26-8s in Europe. So
there are a few TS Picos in Europe.
Oh, okay.
I think there's one in Germany, and England, I think, is at least one other. I don't remember where else. But yeah. So there's, like you said, there's interest. So put that in your head. Let it, sort of kick around a little bit. If you think you have an idea about something that you want to, try to tackle, let Tim know. If you want a pair of eyes on what you've written, share it with Tim, share it with me. I'm happy to, uh, you know, happy to help anybody in terms of writing stuff. But yeah. Let's make
And if there's any binaries to go with it, send them as a zip file and then add them to the zip file. So every ezine or ZXZine comes with the PDF and a zip file of all the binaries and the code and whatever else goes. I may list small bits of code in the PDF, but I'm not going to list a whole bunch because hey, we've got the download. You're not going to retype it in. You've already typed in as a download. So
yeah, absolutely. All right. So those are the things I wanted to, chat with y'all. Anybody want to jump in? Peyton, how you doing with your 2068?
Well, Joe and I were actually just talking on the side here about getting mine maybe sent out to him and working.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be great. So, as much as I know there's, emulators and stuff, but I'm kind of a purist. I want to get with the hardware. I know it's maybe not the greatest experience working on that keyboard, but I think there's just something to it. Actually having the original hardware. So yeah, I'm looking forward to getting here with Joe and getting this sorted out.
Well, I'll tell you what, Peyton, I'm looking off to my left because that's where my 2068 is. It is literally on the left-hand corner of my desk, and it is there
Nice.
all the time.
Yep. Mine's been sitting right here since I got it.
And if you decide that, the keyboard drives you nuts, it's not a terrible keyboard. It's got these little rubber squishy bits underneath. So it's got a little bit more responsiveness than the 1000. But I designed a number of years ago, I designed a little circuit board that will take Cherry MX key switches. And then it's actually a 3-part. There's one circuit board with the switches solder in, but there's another circuit board. It's just circuit board material with holes for the key switches. So you punch the key switch into the hole, and that holds them, sort of straight while you're soldering, which is a challenge. And then there's another piece of PCB that replaces the silver overlay because you have to peel that off in order to put a new keyboard in. So it's just a total waste of a circuit board material, except that it's black and it looks nice. And I initially started out with there's companies like WASD and Max keyboards that will do custom printed keycaps, but they're the full height keycaps, so like whatever, half an inch, 3/4 of an inch tall, and looks totally ridiculous on the 2068, and also is just like a little too tall for my taste. even though it's not as tall as a Commodore 64, still too tall. So I switched to lower profile switches and these super low profile keycaps.
Mm-hmm.
Looks good. Doesn't have the markings, but as it turns out, apparently I remember almost everything. I remember all the, the shift symbol shift, and the whatever in order to get to the right key. You build muscle memory on these things. So, and then I just use a little reference card every once in a while to do that. Oh, speaking of which,
are those Gerbers shared out someplace? Like,
I will do exactly that. Here we go. I'll do exactly that, Joe. All right. So, for those of you who have 2068s, and if you bought it new, it came with the manual, right? And also came with this little gray, like 8-panel fold out brochure, which summarized all the commands and, had a little plot thing of the screen and all this other jazz, right? And it says on the card itself, it says that it's a Wiley quick reference guide, and it's by Gilbert Held, and it says some stuff on the back. And for the longest time, I assumed that these were things that Timex contracted with Wiley to have made. So there's one for the 2068, and then it turns out there was also one for the 1500, about the same size. About I don't know, 4x7 or something, right? And I thought this was Timex's idea, right? Turns out that these products, this was a whole line from Wiley, and on eBay, oh crap, let me turn off my screen. On eBay, up pops this one for the for the 1000, and it's this big. This is like, I don't know, 11, 12 inches tall. It's huge. And it's ironically enough, it's for the 1000. And so I have to back up just to get this thing in the screen. This is insanely large for, such a small computer. And in color. So I guess that's part of the deal. So I'll be scanning that and uploading it, and if you need a reference card for your 1000, such a thing will be available. I thought that was absolutely bizarre. I just had to share it with you guys. So fun. Yeah, Joe. I want to fix. Joe has seen my keyboard layout, and inside the space of the 2068, for anybody who has not seen inside that thing, I wonder if I can just turn on my share with my phone here and get this.
Well, while you're looking for that, there was a much smaller version of that Wiley publication for the 1000.
Oh, really? Oh, so there is a smaller one for the 1000?
Yep.
I know there's one for the, it's like 1000/1500.
If I find it, I'll scan it and send you files.
Okay. All right.
I remember seeing it while I was sorting last year.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I would love to see that. Okay, I'm gonna switch to my phone, and okay, cool. All right, so here's that keyboard that I was talking about, and you can see over here this cutout, whatever, I don't know what this is called. This is hard for me to do. So I had to shift this, literally shift the shift down, and I lined this shift up with that shift. And what I want to do is replace this one with, I think this is a 1.5 in terms of width, and I want to replace it with about a 1.25 or even just a 1, so that I can get it in line with the rest of the keys. This one can stay the same size. And then, then I'll make it available for y'all to just do whatever you want. Go nuts, have fun. The set of boards is, let me think about this. How much was the set of boards? a set of boards. You have to order, in 5s at a minimum, and because of the size and the cutouts, JLC PCB charges a little bit extra. But it's not terribly expensive, because it's just a 2-layer board, the real one that has traces on it. So, I'm gonna let y'all run the show. I might start calling on you.
So did you just have an extra shell that you cut into there to mod the keyboard into it, or?
No, I pulled the original keyboard out.
Oh, just pulling out the original keyboard frees up that space, you're saying?
It's a module, the keyboard module itself. So
okay.
Yeah, you need to take a small thin I don't know, like a palette knife for painting, or plastic, the equivalent, and slip it under there. There's like 4 or 5 spots where they use this sticky black adhesive. Lower right hand corner, lower left hand corner, upper right hand corner. But then the little overlay itself is adhesive across the entire thing. So peel it off and you'll find this oddly shaped, bizarre, it's just, module that contains the original keyboard. And the key spacing is the same spacing as a regular keyboard now. So I think it's 19 millimeters or something like that is the spacing across. Whatever.
That's neat. I could definitely see how that'd be better if you guys doing a lot of development and actually wanting a modern keyboard. That definitely looks like that'd be neat.
Yeah. It's fun. It takes about an hour or so to solder all those little keys. And the little connector that connects to the ribbon cable, it was made by a company called Amphenol. I don't know who makes it now, but you can still get it from Mouser or DigiKey. It's a 15 position connector. And you just, you have to solder it at sort of like a 45-degree angle on the board, so you can slip it into the cutout on the back of the back of the space, the back of the slot, as it were. Yeah, works just fine.
Well, Peyton and I plan on ordering a set of those boards. So I'll have 5. So if anybody else wants some extras, I'll probably only build up 1, but I do plan on doing that.
Yeah, I think I'd be interested too, because I really want to get like one high quality. This one does have a little bit of, like, we're missing kind of the plate on it there.
Oh, you got the sticker.
Yeah. So I mean, this one's maybe not in the best shape. I've actually been haggling with a guy trying to get one off of Facebook, but I've been trying to see if it's working at all. But maybe this one might be the candidate to actually get the replacement on it.
I might have 1 or 2 machines working. I'll double check to see if they actually work.
I have a few. So
you've got working machines?
Yeah.
Well, get one for Joe.
Yeah, I was gonna offer to swap his with one of my working ones, and that way he has something working in his hands, and I'll take a look with my gear at his and see if we can't find out what's wrong with it. Sounds like it might be just a RAM problem, but I'm not sure. But we could do the power supply upgrade at the same time.
David, a question. The keyboard replacement is because some keys fails, or just only to get a more professional keyboard?
No, it's because our fingers are getting old.
Yeah, I wanted a full-size keycap keyboard. Yeah.
Okay. Because if I think in those years, I never had a problem with the keys, with the real 2068 keyboard. It's really, really very good.
Yeah.
Keyboard and the mechanical perspective, okay, not with the idea of use, okay, because it's more better than the Spectrum, but
well, it is.
My problem was the key labels rubbed off. I have a couple that they were just when I bought them, the key labels were gone on half the keys because they were rubbed off. So yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Oh,
Just
you
means
missed
it was well
the
used.
letter. Yeah.
Yeah, back in the day, I was worried about that because mine were starting to rub off, and so I coated them with clear nail polish, which
Well,
thankfully didn't melt the printing.
yeah, that was a recommendation that I saw in some of the newsletters. And to your point, Gustavo, the 2068 keyboard, from what I have seen other people say, and think I think someone at Timex has actually supported this assertion, is um, developed or assembled rather by the same people who made the keyboard for this series of electric typewriters that Brother put out in the 80s. And so this is the EP20 and maybe the EP22. I can go look at that. But I mean, if you look at these keys, it's the exact same mechanism. Except that there's not 4,000 things on a key. There's only like 4. But yeah, I mean it's you can see right down to the there's a sticky overlay, but you probably recognize that little border around the key itself, right? And was good enough for Brother to sell to folks on a typewriter, good enough for us to use on the 2068. No, I don't have a problem with the keyboard itself. Look at Joe's got one. Hang on, Joe, let me pin you.
Of course.
Joe has everything.
Well, is the same size the key or not? It's more square.
There's a little less spacing on these keys because they cram more of them. It's still relatively a small device.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've had one of these for ages and ages. I thought it was a different model when I bought it that had a serial port in the back.
So isn't that the 22 that has the?
Yeah, but this wasn't that one.
Okay.
Brother made a similar device, the TypeStar.
Yeah, this is a Brother.
It had a more conventional keyboard look.
Yeah, this is the EP20 from Brother.
And Canon had the TypeStar.
Yep.
With the text window, and then it went into the text window before it went on paper.
Yeah, this one does the same thing. So.
And I think the whole idea was that you could, like those machines, I think, put for certain software, put keyboard overlays easily onto it.
Yeah. And that was the original idea with the 99 4A with their first keyboard, which was kind of a similar, what they used to call chiclet keys, right?
So that must have been
overlays.
Must have been the same logic IBM used on the first PC Junior keyboard.
Same idea, exactly.
Yeah.
Overlays, and it's funny you should mention that, Ryan, because there were companies that actually, in the 80s, like small companies in the cottage industry type thing that made a plastic overlay for the 2068 that you could write on, for your own programs, or like if you use TazWord, you could get it and write the labels on it. I guess TazWord, and MScript had redefinitions of what different keys would do. So yeah, I got one of those sitting somewhere that's kind of beat up, but I should dig that out and show y'all. Cool. All right. Hey, Tom Hines.
I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. How are you?
you came back, and so I'm going to take that as a good sign.
Yeah.
and I'm gonna assume that means that you are still enjoying using your 2068.
Actually, I have not had time to turn it on.
Oh, okay. Well,
but I did spend, well, I should say that I spent some time this past during the week to learn how to use the Pico with the, I don't know, the memory card so that you could get around the directories.
Yeah.
I was struggling so badly. I actually had to watch YouTube videos.
My recommendation to you, did you get another SD card for your stuff to put the programs on?
Well, actually, I have a spare one.
Okay, good. Okay.
So yeah, I got one. I could pop it in, but I wasn't sure. It doesn't seem, well, actually, because I haven't had time to play with it, I'm not sure if it's recognized it or not because it's too big memory. I don't know.
Is it 32 or larger?
It's larger.
Oh, that's a good point. It might be too big. Isn't there a switch? I don't know off the top of my head, but maybe one of the other guys knows about which version of, in essence, the DOS directory system. Like if once you go over 32, does FAT32 get replaced with something else, like NTFS or something?
I don't know. Yeah, well, my original question, right when I first got it was, do I really need one that big? Because somebody had said 32 is enough.
Yep.
Right. I mean, I got to remember you're dealing with small little programs, not Windows-based Excel programs.
and there's just not that many of them. Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yeah, try to find a 32 or smaller, like a 16 would be good. But the reason I'm saying this is because we are Gustavo and Ricardo and a bunch of others of us are working on testing an upgrade to the Pico the firmware on the Pico that adds some features and makes some other features more stable and stuff. And one of the things that we discovered is the quality of the SD card matters. And the SD cards that I have sent out with Picos, not all of them are up to snuff. And I'm not sure which vendor it was that I got them from, where they're not, awesome. But if you can find a replacement one that's like 16 or 32, that'll be fine.
Yeah, that should be easy to find.
Yeah.
And if I can jump in here, David, also, you have to be careful about the formatting on the card because working with my project here, I found that sometimes the formatting of the card doesn't match some underlying physical characteristics of the file system.
Yeah.
And so while Windows will happily use the card, other OSs like the OS for the Pico may not.
And that's what I'm wondering if it was what Tom has run into with
a
bigger card. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Cool.
And if you ever need to, you can actually go in with Disk Manager, create a 32 gig partition, and then format it with FAT32. I've done that on a couple of my cards where you just waste the rest of the card, but you are correct that FAT32 will only go up to 32 gig, and most of the systems will only accept the FAT32 formatted cards.
Okay.
Otherwise, you go to exFAT or NTFS.
Mm-hmm. exFAT. That's Okay. That makes a lot.
Yeah, you can go into Disk Manager, create a 32 gig partition. You basically, if you have a 64 gig, you waste the other 32 gig on it, but it usually will work.
And
depend of the Pico library, because I suspect that not supporting TFS in NTFS or any advanced partition format. Just only FAT32 or or less is working fine with the most devices.
Correct. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yes. That's exactly right. Mike, is that a Windows program, Disk Manager?
Yeah, if you're on Windows 7 or later, if you hit your Windows key and X, it'll bring up a menu, and one of them's Disk Manager. That's the easiest. That's how I normally get to it.
Okay. Okay. My Windows computer is turned on so infrequently that I don't remember these things. It's been a few years.
Unfortunately, that's what I do for a living. So
yes.
A few hundred computers every single day. And...
yeah. Rufus. Johnny, is that Rufus program? Is that Windows?
Windows only.
Okay.
Yeah, Windows. And I think it's free.
Okay.
Yeah, it's free.
Okay.
But I've tried exactly what you suggested, using Rufus, because I heard that too. Using Rufus to create a larger than 32 gig fat
Yes,
packet.
yes,
And
yes, it does.
Some of the small devices that I have will recognize that, and some will not. So you use it with risk,
Good
right?
question.
But yeah, Rufus is a great tool to have in your toolkit for all different kinds of file system creation.
Okay, cool. David, Solly, you had a question earlier on about text to base. Is that one of the utilities in Ryan's GitHub? Let's see if David Solly.
No.
I don't think David's got his camera off. Okay, so
yeah, that was the first question in the chat.
Yeah,
the text to bass. I tried to get it to work, but I found it easier just to create a B81 file and use 81 emulator to actually make a listing, and then a P file or a TZX.
And B81 is just straight text, right? I mean, that's what it looks
Yeah,
like.
yeah, it's just straight text. It's just the formatting is very specific. So I've been including the B81s in the tapes I've been doing. So somebody, if they wanted to go in and edit it, and then basically like recompile it back into a program, they could do that.
Yeah, I noticed that I could load those directly into 81, just like you just said.
Yeah, I found it for like I can take a notepad and create a document, just a plain text document with Notepad or whatever text editor, the simple text editor you want to use. Edlin, if you're really masochistic. But anyway, yeah, I just create it and import it into 81 and then export it as a TZX or a P file.
Well, let me just show what you're talking about, because I have this open right. Yeah, exactly. And so there's there's a couple of things you have to know about. You have to know about this backslash.
Well, those are all characters for machine code.
Yep, exactly.
Those are text characters, right?
Right. So this is an embedded, machine code routine, as you do on the 81. You put it in the first rem statement, right?
Right.
And then these percent.
Those are the graphic characters or inverse characters, depending on what they are. Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. So it looks a little wacky when you're looking at a text editor, but literally, I mean, these are not tokens. These are,
yeah, they're just regular text.
They're the regular thing. You can, as you were saying, Joe, you can just type a program in, and then you do have to save it as B81. I don't have 81 running right now, but you can load it into 81, and unless you made some sort of really egregious error, chances are good it's going to load.
Right. I mean, you can actually copy text like right out of a PDF document of an old listing on some newsletter or magazine.
Yeah.
And go through it, make sure that it imported correctly into your text editor, and then save it as B81 and pull it right into the 81 emulator and run it. So it's very quick and easy.
And it should. Oh yeah.
Is there a reference for the graphic characters? I don't see an example there.
I'm trying
Those
to
look like they're all inverse.
Yeah.
If you search for the B81 standard and just in Google, there's a document out there that specifies what you need to type for everything.
Okay.
Okay. So maybe I can include this because a lot of the utilities I have do Z make base, which use a different convention for ZX81.
And watch for those percent things instead of the backslash and the various combinations of colon and period.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right. Jeff, did you want to? Have you made any progress since we last spoke, or have you been enjoying the nice weather?
No, I've been writing software. Hello, I'm Jeff. Like I've been writing software. Hello, Jeff.
Yes, you say that with the shame that I would expect that you would. Yeah.
Well, yeah, well, you know me. There's realware and then there's software. But
so what software have you written?
I'm just writing I'm writing the Pico code for the mass storage driver. So I've written and tested all of the basic file access routines, and now I'm just finishing up the tap file routines. So
cool. And this is, for the benefit of the folks who are just joining us, this is for a reasonably sized circuit board that you've designed that can be a lot of things, but one of the things it will do is be a super 2068, a regular 2068 and a super 2068, and sometimes a Spectrum, sometimes a ZX81,
sometimes a ZX81, sometimes a CPM machine.
Right.
And we're not limited to Z80 processors. So I'm really looking at an Apple IIe with a glint in my eye, but I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that here. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, as long as it's not a Commodore 64.
I have a real one of those, but when we meet at VCF, you can flog me for that.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. That's a good reminder. So I don't know if any of you guys saw a message from Lee Hart on the groups.io list. Lee is I think originally like an 1802 guy, and designed little computers based on the 1802 decades ago. And then one of the things that he did with the 1802 was design a miniature version of the Elf, which was the thing that appeared on the cover of Popular Electronics in the 70s, mid 70s, late, based on the RCA 1802. And it was this little box about yay big, literally, and had a series of switches and a series of and two little hexadecimal LEDs. Lee took this and miniaturized it enough that it would fit in an Altoids tin, which is pretty small. And you can go to his website, and you can buy these little PCBs from him. He's also done, I think he's done a Z80 version. It's been a while since I've looked at his website. But he sent an email to the groups list, and in anticipation of VCF next year, he is considering making an Altoids sized CX81, CX80. I'm not sure which one he's thinking about. Obviously there's a lot more parts involved because, as anybody who's seen the inside of a ZX80, there's about 18 ICs in there. And with the ZX81, they reduced it down to 4 via the ULA. So that's a lot of TTL real estate to reduce to something that's about 2.5 by 3.5 inches. I will say that he goes more than one circuit board. So like the original reduction of the ELF that he did, he calls it a badge, was just one circuit board, but then he's added another circuit board for additional memory and another circuit board for the little switches and a serial board. So, at a certain point, it fits within 2 dimensions of an Altoids tin, but not within the third. So yeah, check that out. Let Lee know what you think in the groups.io list, whatever ideas you might have. Jeff's already told him it's impossible, and Lee has already said I do the impossible.
Well, Jeff is fired.
I knew immediately when I sent that email, I probably shouldn't have.
Impossible. We don't need you.
The 1802 community is just as strange and hardcore as us, as we are. They do all sorts of crazy things on the 1802 list. It's pretty funny. It's pretty funny. Anybody else want to jump in? Feel free.
Well, I was going to try to release my Pico file browser for beta here soon.
Oh, good.
I guess, though, I'll probably have to make 2 versions, one for the old firmware, one for the new coming firmware. Because they changed the star to a
ampersand.
Ampersand, that's what it was.
Yeah.
I forgot about that and wondered why it wasn't working.
I'm glad you asked that question because, frankly, I forgot to.
So, I was going to try to, just for fun, build in a mechanism to try to detect by seeing if I could do the on air to capture that, try it one way, capture the error, and say, oh, we must be on the other version. But you got to be careful with the Pico, because if you try to do something like that, it might tend to crash it. You get an error, but then it won't come back. But I think that one's okay. But it reminded me, on air reminded me of a thing Carl had said some time back. Not in the group, I don't think. Which was, he said he used the on error, and this is probably a technique others use, to create new commands. Is that you would basically, kind of like how the star in the load command creates the error that the interface 1 captures, right?
Yeah.
So you create an error in the on air. I guess you'd use the on air routine to go try to figure out if what you've done is create this new command, but I have not seen thing talking about this technique. I can only imagine how you wind up doing it. I guess you must look at the current program. I don't know how you do it. Like, do you look at the error line number and go peek in memory and look for certain bytes? It was just fascinating to me. And apparently there was a similar technique for adding commands on the Spectrum too. Not with on error though, but I guess it was via the interface one. I want to say like you could hook into that somehow to add other new commands, but I don't remember. I've only heard it mentioned.
So the second part is discussed in there's a book about the interface one. It's like an interface one ROM disassembly book. And I'm pretty sure that's where I read about how to do that on the Spectrum side. On the 2068, if I recall correctly, there's a memory variable that you can read that tells you
there's one for like the error code.
Yeah.
And the line number.
Yeah.
So you must have to like go in probably with a machine code routine would be handy to like run through memory, find the line in memory. Unless it has an address there, that would be handy. But yeah, that must be what you do. But it also reminded me when I discussed this with Carl, this is when we were at Adam's house once, I think. When he said that, I thought, interesting, could we use that method with interface ones to add the 2068 commands to the Spectrum?
Could you use it to add the 2068 commands to the Spectrum?
Now, we may not be able to get everything like, kind of like delete, how delete is built in as a keyword. So you get it with the key press, that kind of stuff. I don't know, but it was just kind of I mentioned that because when we were talking, I said I was frustrated that trying to, we kept coming back to trying to make a 2068 act more like a Spectrum to get some stuff done, and I said, well, maybe it's just easier if we all just switch to Spectrums. And if I could add the 2068 commands to the Spectrum basic somehow, then I'd be happy. And then, you would just use these other things. But anyway, that was sort of where that all went.
Well, I'm not sure if the 2068 uses the same method as the Spectrum, because you can use Timex FDD on the 2068, and it's a similar ROM for both computers. Not sure if we want to study that.
Well, all I was saying was as if, except for the extra commands Timex added, some of which obviously talk to the sound chip.
The Timex operating system commands are not on the disk. They are on the ROM on the interface. You have this interface. You connect to a Spectrum. I have one for the 2068 for the Timex Sinclair, but I don't have one to try it. But I have one for the TC 2068 and also works the same way. And the commands are here. The thing that interprets the commands are here. Everything else is like low-level communication commands.
Yes, this is the M397 interface, correct?
Yes. The commands are here, not on the disk unit. This interprets the commands and sends the commands to the disk unit.
So
Yes, this is the part of the
it
syntax.
have the extra comments like the load asterisk name file.
Yeah, and the cat and the move and etc.
Yes, this ROM intercept and also check the syntax, the correct syntax, and then move the command to the FDD and the FDD execute the instruction. Yeah, that is the method. But maybe I thinking that Ryan mentioned that, for example, the new commands in the basic extension, like a delete or sound or stick, this was used free or UDC tokens expanded from the spectrum of basic normal commands. Maybe Ryan mentioned this method to create the new commands, but it's a few commands. It's not a library commands, okay? It's only for a few commands. That's correct, Ryan, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's not, I'm not trying to like make something that hooks to one of these other systems. It was just sort of this thought that if I had a spectrum that could somehow I could add the commands of the 2068, because I often use those, and then they may not necessarily have to map to, like the stick command could map to a Kempston joystick, really. It doesn't really matter, just as long as you could use that command. The sound command could map to the same chip, but it could be like the way they hooked it up in the 128 or something like that. But that those commands are there somehow or other, and then I could just use a Spectrum with Spectrum hardware, not need twister boards. I could use the interface one and all the rest of it. And then I would still have those commands in BASIC. It wasn't for any, that was just the thought. It wasn't any, it was just sort of a frustration with trying to get all these things working with a 2068 with all of its memory mapping issues, different bus, and all the other stuff. Say, well, why couldn't we just enhance a Spectrum to be as close to a 2068 as we could, and then go from there?
Yeah, one of the problems with doing this, Ryan, is that you have to get by the whole syntax checking during program entry versus run. So if you're trying to type in a command that didn't exist on the keyboard, syntax checking wouldn't allow it to be entered into the computer.
Well, the divide with XROM allows you to key dot commands in programs.
Right, but it intercepts the restart 8 to do that, the error routine. So
well, I mean,
probably
if that's what you have to do, that's all I'm saying is that what I mean,
well,
clearly adding an interface one to a Spectrum allows you to type those commands, right?
It
So
also uses the restart 8.
Right.
Yeah.
They all use the same, but this also uses the same.
Yeah,
method.
they all do that. That's what I'm saying is that then apparently you can use that method to also somehow add other commands beyond like what the interface one added as well. And I thought, well, if I could use that, I could also add commands perhaps to, add the free stick and sound commands possibly on error. That might be pretty hard, but to the Spectrum, obviously with a little handy little add-on board, hint, that you would stick on the back. But then it would be like, at least in BASIC, you'd have pretty much the 2068 BASIC. Obviously, you would have not, solid compatibility, but you would then basically be playing in the Spectrum world.
As long as it is BASIC, probably it won't have problems. But since the on error is a token and not a typed in comment.
Yeah, I don't know how far you could get, but
well, if you try to load the 2068 program with on error, for example, on a spectrum, you get the character.
No, I know.
Character is there. So it can be interpreted as on error by a restart 8 with a shadow ROM.
Right.
Yeah.
That would be that'd be kind of the idea. But I'm
The
also
character
not
is there.
I'm also not necessarily interested in being compatible with a 2068 program either. At least binary necessarily. Because part of the point would be, hey, I'm giving up some of the something, and so I would be able to have the basic programs mostly work, but the admission is that those are pretty rare things versus spectrum programs. I mean, hands up, people who used on error before. Oh, hey.
Not on the 2068, but certainly in other basics. Yeah.
Yeah, some other basics had it. Pretty handy thing too. But again, I imagine there's probably more people use the sound command, right? Come on.
Nah. People
No?
usually use machine code for the sound chip.
Right. So why do we even need to bother with those commands anyway? Just go get some spectrums.
It was kind of people thought that the Spectrum emulator cartridge would disable the IE chip, but it doesn't. The hardware is all there. There is no basic to use it, and you can use it through machine code.
Well, anyway, that was just that thought. I thought it was interesting that
I never used on error because I didn't get the 2068. I got the 2048. No on error there.
I'm trying to remember how I did it in the BBS. And I'd have to study the listing, I think, in order to resurrect that memory.
Tom asks, and since it's almost 4, but Tom asks, is there a way for a Timex 2068 to manage a model railroad using DCC? So who else here knows what DCC is? Gosh, I don't know, Tom. I mean, I haven't even looked into the DCC protocol, but I'm assuming it's serial since it goes out over the rails, literally. And if it's serial, then at the very least, you could use a Raspberry Pi Pico as an interface between the 2068 and your railroad. How's that sound? And you know what? I'm gonna just take a real quick let's see, MicroPython and DCC. Oh my lord. Of course there is. There's a DCC basic signal generator using MicroPython PIOs. Of course there is. So the answer is yes, Tom. All it takes is time and programming and hardware.
Yeah, it looks like there's that's a positive and negative voltage output like RS-232. So
it makes sense because you're sending a signal over the power rail, and so you'd want to yeah, that's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. Yeah, you know what this sounds like, Tom, is it sounds like a perfect project to take up pretty much the rest of your time, all your free time. And for those who don't know what it is, but did play with model railroads in the past, is at some point, 20, 25 years ago, the folks who make engines, electric engines for railroads, model railroads, came up with this means of sending commands to the engine itself. So instead of using analog voltage control, you just sort of put constant voltage out on the rails, and then this module picks up signals and applies the appropriate amount of power to the motor inside the engine, makes it go backwards and forwards and turn on its light and turn on its little smoke machine and whatever else. And in HO scale, this is not a terrible thing. To implement in N scale, it gets a little bit challenging. I can't imagine that there's DCC for Z scale, which is super tiny, but maybe there is.
Hey, just use chip on board packaging and
there you go. Yeah. Yet another thing in which our interests will tend to intersect. Let's put it that way. All right. On that note, gentlemen, our next meeting is, let me find my calendar, Monday, November 4th, 9 p.m. Eastern. I have no idea what we're going to talk about. If you guys come up with stuff,
no politics.
Yeah. Oh shit. That's right. Tuesday's election day.
That's Tuesday's voting day, isn't it?
It is. It is indeed. And so we'll, I'll let you go in time to vote.
You'll probably have some questions by then.
Exactly. I'll send a little note over the list and encourage y'all to weigh in on things that we should chat about. Maybe Thomas will have started programming DCC on a Raspberry Pi, and he'll want to know how to interface that to his 2068. We can help you with that, Thomas.
Phone company did that with POTS lines.
What's that?
Yeah, basic 48 volt DC, and then modulate the AC over it.
Yeah, right. DCC is a 10 kilohertz signal, I think. I'm not positive, but that's my guess.
Well, you just need a filter to filter out the DC.
Yep, exactly. That's precisely how it works. It's a nifty little...
It's like a capacitor. It's very simple.
Yeah, it's very simple. Yeah, it's nifty.
We used a resistor in series with a capacitor.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So they manufactured the one end of the capacitor had the resistor stuck in it.
Okay. Simple low pass filter.
Yeah, a little RC network.
Yeah. You feed it the right, right frequency, and you can get it to oscillate. All right. Thank you, gentlemen. See you in 2 weeks ish.
See you in a week.
Exactly. Don't forget about that. I might not see you, but I'll be there. Yeah.
Oh, I'll probably appear.
Okay. All right.
Okay. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
See you.